Alright, so it's almost Halloween. What's the weather like outside?
It's snowing.
Snowing?
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, but it's snowing where?
Where's it snowing? It's snowing, like, a lot of snow. Where? It was on the TV.
Where was it?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So what are we going to do today to take advantage of the cruddy weather?
We're going to make candles.
Excellent. And so what do we need to make candles?
Beeswax, the molds, the wick, and this
That's silicone spray.
silicone spray.
And the wax that we use, we actually have to buy. You don't, unless you're doing a lot of crush and strain or a lot of honey extraction, you won't produce a lot of wax from your home apiary. In fact, when we did crush and strain on one medium honey super, we only yielded about 13 ounces, so not even 1 pound of wax. This is about 1 pound of wax right here. These, or this particular mold I purchased at Brushy Mountain. It's about 35 or 40 bucks. And this makes a 10-inch taper. The wick we have here is called 2.0 wick, and it's what the thickness appropriate for a tapered candle or a candle that's less than an inch in diameter. And the silicone spray is just a release agent to help the candles get released. So we are going to start by melting the wax in a Pyrex dish in the microwave until it's liquid. So we have melted our wax in a Pyrex bowl, and now we've got the mold turned upside down. This is the actual top of the candle, and as you can see, the holes are rather small, and it's hard to fish that that wick down there. So I've got a trick. I'm going to take the wicks and the ends of each of the wicks and dip it in the wax. Let that cool for a second. This does take some rather asbestos fingers, but if you straighten out the wick and remove some of the wax with your fingers while it cools, it stiffens the wick and allows it to be pushed through those holes like a wire rather than like a piece of string. So let that cool, and we'll do a couple more. Again, just dip it in the wax. The ends. Ow! Some of the excess wax. And then just keep straightening it. And let it cool. This one cooled enough? You can see, now that I've done that, these become like little wires. And I can sharpen the end and jam it all the way down the length of the candle. And you can see I'm using one piece of string for 2 candles, or probably one piece of wick for 2 candles. And you go to the other side, just pull them out. And there you have your wick that goes all the way down. So we're going to do this with the rest of the candles. Okay, you can pause then. Okay, just one last time to review. We just use the waxed cord. Go down the entrance. or the top of the candle mold. And that makes it much easier than doing what we were doing before. And then we pull up all these excess wicks, and I'm going to what we're going to do now is use a bobby pin as a way of keeping the wick centered and taut over the bottom of the mold. And I cannot take credit for this. This was something I saw on the internet from another beekeeper, a guy named John Paluda. So congratulations to John for introducing me to another use for the bobby pin. And I'm pulling these wicks tight as I put the bobby pin on. That'll help keep it centered and straight as we add the wax. I'm going to need one more bobby pin. Other nice thing about having waxed these wicks is it gives the bobby pin something to grip on. The wax is a little sticky. Bobby pins in here. So there's your setup. This is the direction the wax will go in. You can see on the bottoms we've got the wicks spanning each candle. And we're ready to pour wax. Now one of the tricks here is that we have a hole at the bottom where the wick goes in, and hot wax will drip through that hole. So we're just going to pour just a little bit of wax into each candle first to sort of establish a plug at the bottom, and let that cool before we fill the rest of the candle up. So we'll add this, about a tablespoon or so of wax, and then we'll let that cool a little bit for 5 minutes. So how long do we leave the wax in the microwave to get it from solid state to liquid state?
10 minutes.
About 10 minutes, right. Now we're going to pour each of these molds all the way to the top. I've got this sitting on top of a marble slab, which is really a great way of keeping any dripped wax easily cleaned up with just a scraper. I think any kind of cutting board will do as well. So we are dripping a little bit of wax here, but not a ton. Okay, so each of our molds is filled to the top. What you'll see is as the wax cools, the level of the candle will actually drop, and that's because the wax starts to shrink as it cools. So we'll come back here and top these molds off 1 or 2 more times until the entire candle is solidified. So as I described, the candles do shrink, and you can see, for instance, on this one, I did top it off with some more wax just a few minutes ago, and I'll do this a couple more times. And you see all that wax on top of the mold. That's for me topping off some of the other ones. Don't worry about that. We can that wax will not go to waste. We will recover it and use it for the next set of candles. That's okay.
Hot.
All right, so our candles are essentially hardened, but to release them from the mold right now would be a little difficult because the wax is still a little soft. And if I feel the tubes, they're still warm to the touch. So one trick to help get these candles to be released from the molds is to pop them in the freezer until they get down to the freezing temperature. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to pop them in the freezer.
Look at that. Yep.
So we've pulled the candles out of the freezer. You can see this is the top of the candle, so this is where we poured. And you can see how we did get some leakage at the bottom from our first pour, which is fine, and we will reuse this wax again. And the freezer has made the wax very brittle, which is what we want because it'll make it easier to pull it out of the molds. I'm going to cut each of the wicks right at the level of the mold. This will help free it up a little bit. Flip it over. Pull off the bobby pins. And some of these bobby pins might be encased in wax. That's okay. And we'll just start with these first two candles. What I normally do is I push down first. That seems to release it. And then pull up on the extra wick. And there we have a candle. We just cut off the extra wick at the end. And there's a perfect taper. Nice handmade candle. I'll do another one. Push it down a little bit, loosen it. That one's not being as easy. Sometimes we'll come back to that one. Here's another one. Push it down and pop it out again. Another attractive, almost flawless candle. And these handmade candles, because of their modest imperfections, give them a little more charm. They smell great when they burn, and they burn long and don't drip. So that's really all there is to making homemade candles. Hope you enjoyed watching this little video.